Good evening again. I'm Andy Wilkins, and I get to be the headmaster for OBA's 111th year here. So it's a joy and an honor to serve the kingdom in this capacity. A couple of other people that I want to recognize that are here. First off, Chesney Brackage, who is a 14 alumni, is here. She is here. She's on furlough for 3 months from her mission field and where she's been the last several years in North Africa, serving and doing what the Lord has called her to do, so that students leaving OBA and going on the mission field, that 111-year tradition continues. So I'm really glad she was in town and able to join us today. And then I want to do another special recognition. Miss Fitch, if you'll help me out. Yeah, go here. There's a lady who has been really, really instrumental in OBA the last, 26 years. 28 years. 18 consecutive years as a teacher, and then has served the last, and we're going to have to coax her out of the back. Let's see if we can get her. And then the last 10 years serving on the board and as board president in 2019 as well. And so, Miss Christmas, go get her. She obviously didn't know we were doing this. So, but she was coordinating the students and helping plate and serve for the meal tonight. But Miss Scott, come up to the front. Your former student and board president, Kyle Lilly, has a special gift for you. Thank you for your service to OBA for the past 28 years as teacher and board member. Inviting alumni back to speak is really fun for me because there's no shortage of OBA alumni that have gone on to do things that are worth celebrating. And so it is my pleasure today to have two of those. Our first alumni speaker is Amy Abernathy Peterson. She is a 1990 graduate. She's an author. She is I think I'm going to get this right. She's the pastor to the pastors' wives for Oklahoma Baptists here in the state of Oklahoma. She also holds the record for the most points scored in a women's basketball game still from her high school days. And another little thing we found out, or I found out yesterday, it is her middle son's senior night football game. They moved it because of the weather, and she said, "Hey, I'm committed, I'm coming." And so really, really appreciate, and you guys welcome Amy Abernathy Peterson.
Well, hello. It's good to see y'all. And I'm so happy to be here. That didn't move much, but I think you can hear me all the way in the back. I'm so happy to be here. It's been so fun to remember. We were talking about being able to walk in here and the smell is the same. And there's Stephanie. Hi. And all of our 1990 grads are here. Some of them aren't. It's been really fun. But the smell is still the same. And I bet if we would walk in that gym, the smell would be the same there too. And it would bring back so many memories. But I'm so thankful to share with you the impact that OBA has had in my life. The ministry that comes from this place has residual effects for years and decades to come, and I'm a living example of that. It was 1984 when we started, when Laura and I and a number of us began 7th grade here at OBA, and I believe it was the year after the doors actually opened for the first time here in Enid. And so it was a brand spanking new building, and Laura and I were just talking, we didn't know how good we had it. But we are so, it was really a fun. And then 1990 is when we graduated with a class of 18 people. Whoop, whoop, 1990. And as my youngest son tells me in quite bewilderment, Mom, you mean you grew up in the 1900s? Yes, I did. Grew up in the 1900s. But that was 32 years ago. 32 years. But here's the beauty, and all of us can say this, the beauty of living life or getting older is that you're able to look back and see the steps and the handprint of the Lord in your life. And as I look back, OBA has been foundational in God building certain steps within my life, leading me here to today. That is something to celebrate. And with celebrating brings with it remembering. And I have to confess, I did get out my yearbooks to remember some things. Did you too, David? Yeah. I couldn't remember much, and I was just astounded by all the cool things that I had forgotten, but I do remember. But do you remember, for those of you who are here in the 80s, when the school was canceled because we had too much rain? And this street was not paved. And so they called it, we were like the laughing joke of Enid, because they could not believe that we had school called off for rain. All of us were so excited. We thought it was the best ever. Do you remember Miss Christmas's first year teaching? We were just talking, and we were seniors. 1990 class were seniors when Miss Christmas came as a 22-year-old and taught us, get this, typing on real typewriters. And they were super cool because they were automatic, and then they even had the button that backs up automatically with a whiteout. Super cool. We're in good company here. I see a lot of heads. Tomorrow when I speak in chapel, they won't know what this stuff is. But do you remember 6-on-6 girls basketball? I get the craziest looks when I tell people that I played 6-on-6. Thus the reason to be able to have a high point, because you only have to share points with 2 other people. From now on, you have to share with 4. So it was really such a fun season, and they can't believe that we stopped at half-court line. Then they asked, did you wear skirts? No. Do you remember the payphone in the hallway? I don't know. There's not a payphone in the hallway, is there? Do they even have payphones anymore? I remember the payphone in the hallway. I was dating a guy in Enid, and he had off-campus lunch, and every day he would call me on that payphone. This is way beyond cell phones and iWatches. It was the payphone that he would call me on every day in our lunch times. And then, do you remember Mr. Caldwell and Phi Mi Club? Do you remember home ec class with Miss Schwartzendruber? I learned how to sew a shirt. And then the shop class would make the coolest wooden clipboards and wooden pens. And I think I just got rid of that wooden heart clipboard a while ago when we moved in one of our places. But we can remember and we can celebrate. So we're celebrating here tonight. I never would have imagined being the girl that I was in these hallways. Fast forward the 32 years, and here I am, and all that God has done. So I wanted to kind of rewind my life from here to there very quickly and kind of give the highlights. In order to do this, we all believe that the Lord is beautifully orchestrating and writing the stories of our lives. But sometimes we're in the middle of it. We're going, what in the world are you doing, Lord? And so it's so important. He told his people to remember, to build stones and altars to remember who he is. It's so important to remember what he's done in our lives so that as we look forward, we believe his faithfulness to do what he's done now from what he did before. So step by step, God shows us the way, and each step prepares us for the next thing. So here's the rewind of the highlights of what God has done in my life, step by step, working backwards. So I hope you can see his hand in my life. Currently, Brandon and I, my husband and I, live in Edmond, and we have 3 boys. We have a Max, who is a junior at OBU. He's 20. And then we have an 18-year-old senior who is at Deer Creek. And then we have an 11-year-old 5th grader, and we are in Edmond. My husband is the Dean of Students at Oklahoma Baptist University, OBU in Shawnee, and he's the Vice President of Campus Life there, too. And just a side note, OBU is an amazing school. And it took me 2 universities before I ended up landing at OBU after I graduated from OBA. And it was really something that changed my life because I met Brandon there and other things. But I currently serve, like Mr. Wilkins said, as the Oklahoma Baptist Ministry Wife Ministry Partner, which basically I come alongside women whose husbands serve in ministry in the 1,700 Southern Baptist churches in our state. Did you know there are 1,700 Southern Baptist churches in our state? And so I have the privilege of walking alongside women and building structure and strategies in order to engage and encourage them. Because the ministry life is amazing, amazing blessing, but it also has some really unique challenges. And so it's a delight to be able to come alongside of them. But before all that, I was actually a ministry wife for 20 years. My husband served in churches in Tulsa, Dallas-Fort Worth, Columbia, South Carolina. He was singles minister, minister of education, and an executive pastor. And I loved serving alongside of him. And the Lord grew and gave opportunity for teaching, discipling, mentoring, writing Bible studies, doing all those things alongside. He opened up that door. But what's so cool, I didn't know that this position wasn't even created yet, the ministry wife partner. But for 20 years, the Lord was preparing me for the next step. And I love how he does that. So before being in ministry for 20 years, before that, Brandon and I met at OBU, and I graduated with an education degree. And so I went from there to teach in Dallas-Fort Worth. I taught 7th and 8th grade history. And then I had an opportunity to step into the corporate world, and I did customer service training for a company and computer conversions, wrote curriculum, and then we had a partnership with Lowe's Home Improvement, and we opened up stores all over the country as kind of a one-stop shop. We had a construction equipment rental company, so I had to learn a lot about excavators and backhoes and scissor lifts, but you won't see any Lowe's with our shop on the side of it anymore. It kind of fell flat. It didn't quite work. But I was a part of opening a lot of stores. So that was really an exciting and fun time. And then once we started having our family, I was a stay-at-home mom and a ministry wife. So it's so cool to see that through the training of learning how to teach professionally, the Lord opened up opportunity to teach Bible studies. The Lord opened up opportunities as a ministry wife. And then the Lord opened up opportunities for me to serve ministry wives in our state. As I look back, step by step, I see God's hand. God took time year after year and step after step to build into my life who he wanted me to be and what he wanted me to do. Because before all that, I was growing up in Enid, and I was at OBA. And OBA was significant in building the foundations of what God would do. And I just wanted to give you a few examples. As a freshman, Kayleen Klassen, and I don't know your married name now, but I saw you and hugged your neck. Kayleen came up to me as a freshman and said, "Why did you think about running for student government, STUCO?" And I was like, "Are you serious? I'm terrified to speak in front of people, and I think that maybe." And I did, but it sparked a love for me to create content. It sparked a love for me to deliver and communicate on a microphone. And so I had the privilege and the joy, and such growth happened through STUCO as I served there for sophomore, junior, and senior year. It sparked a love. It was the training and preparation of who God created me to be and what he had called me to do. Another example of the significance of OBA was through basketball. And we just had the best time, 6-on-6. All the coaches and classmates and experiences that we had to win and lose and sweat and cry and run. One time we lost a game by 26 points and we had to run that many things. It was exhausting, and I will never forget that. But with basketball, I learned grit for hard things, to get through hard things and keep growing. I learned to handle pressure and expectation. of my performance. I learned how to face disappointment and keep one step in front of the other. I learned to work with a team, and I learned to lead. It was the training and preparation that God was doing in my life before I even knew he was doing it. The other thing that I just am so grateful for OBA about, and even more so at this stage as a mom, I see as so valuable and unique, was that there was such an emphasis to live life together in gospel community. And there are just so many fun things that we did together. Canton Lake, Romanos, the fun days. We did some mud pit and shaving cream fights. So fun. Choir trips to Nebraska, junior, senior trip, and weekly chapel. This kind of community is so unique. We're raising our boys in big public school, and they don't have that. But the community that we had, I didn't know how valuable it was. But I look for that kind of community every place we've moved to. And my heart and passion is to create that kind of community for other people in all the different places that God has called us to serve. OBA was significant in the training and preparation that God had called me to do. With academics, I was challenged to think and to learn with individualized attention. There was massive customization that was happening in each classroom. And scripture memory, to be able to get a grade to study God's word, and the scripture memory that still can roll off my tongue because of having to memorize it in Bible class. I'm sure if we all had a chance to go around the room, and if you had the privilege of going here to OBA, you too could have shared stories of how God's hand and traced it back to how he built things in your life here at OBA. So tonight we're celebrating the ministry of OBA, and we're being grateful. We're grateful for so many things. We're grateful for the people that came before us who had that vision. My goodness, to have a school in the early 1900s and the progression that it had to come here to OBA, their vision and sacrifice and obedience. We're celebrating you and what you all are doing now for the generations to come here at OBA. But ultimately, we are celebrating God and who he is. So let's remember, he is faithful. He is patient. He is creative and does things that we can't even imagine. He is working even when we don't think he is. He is a methodical builder of everything in our lives, season by season, step by step, stage by stage. Hebrews 3:4 says, every house is built by someone, but God is the builder of everything. Listen, in between these lines of highlights, there's been some really hard things in my life, heartbreaking things. So the highlight reel is always nice, but through it all, the Lord has been so faithful to me and taking me through step by step. So if you're going through a difficult season and wonder what in the world the Lord is doing in your life, look back and remember what he has done. He loves you. He is working even when you don't see it, and we can trust him. What a privilege to be loved and used by him. I am so grateful for the ministry of OBA to equip students to glorify God as we engage the world, and I will forever live in the blessing of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you very much. So I get to do the business stuff, and then we'll get on to hearing more exciting words of encouragement. So if you guys have your packets, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the corporation. We're going to do the corporation meeting. So we're going to start off by, you'll see the annual meeting here. The next page is going to have the minutes. And so I'm going to formally call the corporation meeting to order, and then I would need somebody to give me an approval and a second for the minutes from last year. Do I have a motion? There is. Brian, thank you. And is there a second? Second, thank you. All those in favor, please state aye. Thank you. Okay. Now, I want to introduce for the nominations David Minks. He is currently serving as our vice president of the board.
So we need to keep all this voting stuff very legit tonight. Kyle can't cover this part because he's actually on the ballot, so I need to step in and do this. I need to do two things. First, I need a motion from the floor to approve the the balloting committee, and that's going to be Stephen O'Neill, Jason Watkins, and Kevin Friesen. They'll collect all the ballots, count, and report the results. Got one? Jerry Kane? Need a second? Kyle? Need a second? Okay. All in favor? Aye. All right. And then the second thing I need to do is know if we have any nominations from the floor for board members. I don't see anything. Kyle, what do we need to do to check the box there? Is it good? Yeah, I think we're good. Okay. So we're going to fill out the ballots now and collect them at this time? Okay.
Yes, they'll be around. Go ahead and fill out your ballots, and if you collect them, raise your hand. Stephen will walk around and gather that, and we'll give you the results towards the end of the meeting. So the next step that I'm going to walk you through is if you'll flip back 2 more pages, I'm going to go through the financial statement, and this is a summary of the financial statement for OBA for the last year. So if you'll flip back, you'll see it says Oklahoma Bible Academy income statement for fiscal year ending in July 31st of 2022. And so I'm just going to walk through this high level, and then if you have questions, Laura Lang is our treasurer, so you can ask her or feel free to ask me, either one of us. But from a high level standpoint, our tuition is $1.4 million. Sounds like a lot, but that really only covers about 60 to 70%, well, right around 70% of our cost of attending the school. So if you look at that, tuition and fees, 1.481. You can see the other income that was given. The gifts line was, we were blessed this last year. We had a family that decided to give some appreciated stock for the purpose of being used kind of as an endowment over the next 10 years for some capital gifts, which is great. So for those of you that have highly appreciated stock that you'd like, Andy Shuey is here. He will help you on a way that you can give that to OBA without paying taxes on it. So that is something that is available. You can see what our booster club, our auction numbers, what we did last year. You can see the other income. For our total income this last year was at $2,905,000. You can see our expenses, our education expenses, our administration, building and grounds. Total expenses was at $2.383, providing our net income of $522,000. Minus, there's a little bit of capital campaign from a campaign we did a couple years ago that's just finishing up. That was the capital campaign that we worked on for the bleachers and the floor. These are commitments that have just came in from the past. So due to some of those to the large gift, it did help us do 3 major projects over the last year that was used on. The first one is a bus. That bus is parked outside. Meaning if anyone would like to see a tour of that bus, Mr. Cheatham has promised me he will give a tour of that bus as long as you keep it clean. You can't mess it up. So that bus is parked outside. We were able to do that. The other thing we did is we were able to resurface our track. By resurfacing our track, what that did is that allows us to hold meets. One of the things we did this last year is we had a middle school track meet. So we were able to have hundreds of kids that live in our area that are 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, that are younger kids that have even potentials to come here and be on campus to see what OBA has to offer. And so that is something that we've been able to do with the refinishing of that track. So thank you all. And the third thing we got to do is in this auditorium, we were able to update the lights and audio. I don't believe that had been updated. I'm going to get it wrong in 15 or 20 years, so thank you again. So those are 3 big projects that were able to be done because of your investment in OBA, and we appreciate that, and we thank you for that. So as you can see, now if you look further down, you can see the designated gift income, and you can see our gift income that was to the operations was at $273,000. In general, for OBA, from a year-to-year standpoint, we do have to raise about $300,000. That's our budget. That's what we need to raise. That's the gap between what tuition brings in and what it costs to run the school. And so always keep OBA in the back of your mind. It is a wonderful place for boys and girls to become men and women that with a Christian worldview that they can just look through that lens of Christ as they live their life and become leaders and become parents in this world. And we need as much of those men and women that will have that Christian worldview and know what's truly important in life. So do I have a motion to accept the financial statement? I do need a motion and a second. So there's a motion over here with Jeff. Is there a second? There's a second in the middle. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Andy.
All right. What is going on now? What is going on the past year? So that is one of my joys that I get to report. You got to hear about some of the capital improvements that we were able to make. So walk through me with the packet, and then I'll have a few things that are up here on the slide behind me that you can see for what we're celebrating and appreciating. First off, you can see in the next paper is the Wall of Christian Commitment for Clelly Richards. He was planning on being here, and then yesterday he got tickets to the World Series. So if you know him, he sent me a text this morning and said, I got something else. So you can read about him, and he's posted up there on the wall. So I got a feeling he'll be a speaker sometime soon at this meeting. So flip over to the next page, the color page. Some things that we're celebrating this year. One, we're fully staffed. If you have any of what's going on in Oklahoma, for us to be fully staffed in June was a tremendous blessing of the Lord's provision. Part of that providing is a dream that I've had that would really set us apart educationally. Our math class sizes. You can see that number there. Our average is 10 students in a math class. Our highest class only has 18 students in it. So especially in that subject, that's a great learning level. 60% of our teachers have a master's degree. And we have, one of the things I celebrate, there's a lot of godly men walking around these hallways. I don't know of another environment where 70% of our faculty is male and that love the Lord, and they are here to make disciples through the avenue of their teaching and coaching, and that has been a blessing for us to be able to have. We have implemented some institutional research on spiritual development. I mean, how do you measure if the kids love Jesus? I mean, how do you measure if the mission, if the faith is actually getting instilled into the students, besides just learning some things on some test scores? So if you flip over on the back of that page, we use a test that the students take, or more of an assessment survey, and you can see those areas of green. That is where the students rated us high. Okay, so that was when we got our report back. It is where they said, this is really, really good. God is using this in my life for me to grow in my relationship with Him. And I love that the top thing is mentoring and relationship with the staff. And so just through their lives, we always talk about the most important thing our teachers doing is their relationship with Christ overflowing and spilling out onto the students, that their relationship with Christ would be contagious. You can see the different things there and what they said, and some areas for improvement that we are working on. So that is really helping us make some changes to be effective in discipling up the students that the Lord has blessed us with. The academics are as high as they've ever been here at the school. A lot of that I think that we're going to see for the next 5 years because we didn't miss any school. Our committed community made it happen during COVID, and we're hearing back from our freshmen about, frankly, how far ahead they are in their freshman class. But there wasn't any lag for us, and so we saw that show up on a couple of the assessments. And you can see our partnerships there that we have around the community for our students to get a good holistic education. So at being a school, it's still going really well. We are not new at being a good school. OBA has been challenging students to think critically for a long time. Being good at school is not something new because we're trying to honor the Lord with our education programs and every day in the classroom with every minute that we have. The next page that you have on in your packet is a student story. So thanks, Mr. Wilkins, for telling us all the stuff you want us to hear. This is one of our valedictorian stories. This is what she shared at graduation. This is her firsthand source of her experience at OBA and the impact that it made in her life when she got to the end of the journey. So you can read that sometime this week and see, wow, okay, God's work and God's movement here at the school is still really effective. A couple of new things that we're doing this year. We've started academic support services. Okay, the academic juggernaut that OBA is. There's a lot of families that want their kid here, and they need a little more support. So we were blessed with the resources, personnel, and financial resources to be able to offer that. And so there's 15 students that are really thriving and flourishing academically here at OBA that were prior that was a struggle for them. So discovery therapy is not new for us, but it had been a while since we'd had somebody that was certified to offer that. And so we're really excited about being able to do that. Again, we're offering some parent sessions. There's some unique things about this generation, and this generation just went through a global pandemic where their life was disrupted a lot. So we're working with our parents. A lot of it is they're just getting together and they're collaborating together on, how do we do this well and to honor the Lord. So we've been having a good time with those as well. Just education, the cost of education has just skyrocketed the last 20 years at every level. And so I think one of the challenges, and we'll hear a little bit more, some opportunities for us in this committee to continue the great things that God is doing here as a committed community, is we've got to be able to fund and supply to keep the Miracle on Chestnut going. And we've got some great opportunities. You see one of those is the Opportunity Scholarship Fund that's in the back page that you can check that out. One of our school dads, actually, that's in the state legislature, wrote a bill so that private investment could be made that could be used for scholarships as a tax credit. And so your business, your family, you can see the details on that. They've got a super helpful website. But it sounds too good to be true. Okay, it really is true. Okay, you'll get some more instructions on that to engage, giving to the school that way for scholarships. The other thing is our partnership with the MB Foundation. The endowment growth, that's just where that's going to be in the future, is going to be an endowment. We have to continue to offer what we do at a price for our market point where we are at. So that endowment vehicle that's already rolling, that frankly we just need to keep it going and keep it growing it, so that we can continue to offer this really special thing that the Lord has for students and for the next generation to know, love, and serve Christ through that. So those are opportunities for us to continue to go. Let me tell you the story of three families real fast. This is the Smith family. If you've been around the last 10 years, you know them. Three boys that were here. They're a military family. They were all over the world before they got stationed at Vance. They found OBA, had their kids here, loved it. Dad adjusted his career so he could stay and his kids could be at OBA, all three of his boys. Eric's now a sophomore and might be sitting back there of one that was helping us out tonight. So I think I just see all girls over there right now. Anyways, so the Smith family is here, super involved. The Mendoza family, they came last year. Again, military, been all over the world. Came here, found OBA, the Christian education. The dad adjusted his military career because they wanted their kids to be at OBA. And then the final family, the Christiansens, they're here tonight, and they're so came from Germany, was their last stop, in case you couldn't tell. And their daughter EJ is a 7th grader. Again, that same story. They've adjusted their military career so that they could stay here in Enid because of OBA. These families that have been around the world, they know what OBA offers. They come experience it. They know what this costs, not just in Oklahoma or not just in the United States. They know what this costs everywhere else in the world. And they know they're not going to get this at this price point anywhere else. And so these families have stayed, and it's been a joy to have them in our community. And there are students flourishing and growing and contributing and to teach them. So thank you that OBA now is available for parents that live in Northwest Oklahoma to choose for their families today. And I'll tell you that those of you all that were here, that maybe prior generation, again, thank you for my own child and our own community. But the fact that we have this choice for our children, that the most important thing we want our kids to grasp, my own child here, I have another one up in here next year, for the gospel to be celebrated every day from all of the adults that they're around, that is priceless to us. That's the most important thing that we want, and frankly, other schools just aren't capable of helping my wife and our children learn the most important thing that we want them to learn in our 18 years with them. So thank you, and again, it's a joy to serve as a headmaster at OBA. Okay, I apologize. Was that there? Our next speaker to talk about Christian education, the future of Christian education, the role that OBA played, is Dr. David Jansen. He is an 86 alumni, has a bachelor's degree from Tabor, master's and PhD in computer science from Kansas, been a part of the corporate world, even has a patent, I found out, and was a professor for a long time at Cal Poly. And I found this really neat in your bio. You can Google it if you want to. It's much longer than what I'm saying. But where he was voted as the Christian professor at Cal Poly Institute by the Christian organizations there on campus, which I thought that was really neat of a testimony to you. And now currently serves as the president of Tabor College. Welcome, Dr. David Jansen.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. It's great to hear what's happening at OBA. A couple of things that you missed. One, I was voted by Cal Poly most likely to make you a billionaire. Something that might, not me a billionaire, but most likely to make you, I'll refer to that in a little bit. It really is an honor to be here. I never imagined as a student in the 1980s that I would come back here as president of Tabor College and to represent both OBA and Tabor in this way. There's been a long and rich tradition of OBA students continuing their education at Tabor College, and I celebrate that as a partnership that we have in ministry. As we heard Amy said, as any good alum would do in preparing to come here, I went and through my boxes and I found my yearbook. And I looked at, from 1986, what was happening, and the memories just started flooding back. I was the editor of that yearbook. It was 1986, the 75th anniversary, the Diamond Jubilee celebration. And that was just great fun to be able to look back and see. And I'll bring in a couple of those things, but mostly we want to look forward tonight. One of the things that I did see in that yearbook, though, was a picture of Brian Croker preparing. It said, the subtitle, Preparing for Corporation Meetings. And so some things don't change very much. A lot has changed, but Brian, it's good to see you here. I want to focus my comments tonight around the question of why Christian education. To borrow a very well-known phrase, I have a dream. I dream of a day when all education is Christian education, when everyone acknowledges that the best way to understand the world, science, psychology, economics, literature, even mathematics and computing, is through the lens of a Christian worldview, with the Bible open on one side alongside a textbook, with a mentor teacher who, with truth and love, points all students to follow the narrow path that leads to life. I dream of a day when Christian schools, colleges, and universities are so highly valued for their excellent faculty, staff, and facilities that their greatest challenge is deciding who can we accept and how do we grow. I dream of a day when authentic Christian schools receive the biggest gifts, when donors are so convinced that Christian education is how God's kingdom comes to earth, and that they give generously and sacrificially. I dream of a day when the best and brightest faculty aspire to teach in these Christian schools. I dream of a day when companies and employers clamor to hire Christian school graduates because they know these graduates not only know their stuff, both scholarship and skills, but they will navigate life's challenges with integrity, faithfulness, wisdom, grit, sincerity, and love. My dream is already a reality to a certain degree. We have great Christian schools like OBA and Tabor. We have outstanding faculty, staff, coaches, and directors who know their stuff and love the Lord and are inspired to pour into their students, walking with them as they learn and mature. We have excellent facilities where students are safe and can be equipped for the road that lies ahead. We have programs that educate the whole person, including academics, athletics, the arts, leadership, and service opportunities. But the dream is also incomplete. The world is not knocking down our doors to get into great Christian schools. And often, the most authentic, Bible-based Christian schools who have resisted cultural pressures to drift from their mission are not well-funded. The gospel is offensive to many people. While the good news of Jesus is a gift more precious than any riches or experiences, it is often viewed with disdain because it demands everything in exchange for, well, everything. The illogic of the first shall be last and the last shall be first, and in order to gain your life, you must lose it. It is scary and misunderstood and runs completely contrary to our natural desires of selfishness. Although the world might see our love for each other and even admire how we live with grace and truth and humility and peace, they will also see when we make mistakes, and they might be confused by that. And so, what must we do? God knew that the world would not come to us, so he commanded us to go and make disciples. And that is what we're in the business of doing, making disciples. We teach students about God through his word and our experiences. We equip students with knowledge and skills so they are prepared to go into all the world, whether that be a hospital or a ranch, a gym or a software development office, a car lot or a machine shop, whether that be in Enid, Oklahoma, or Hillsborough, Kansas, San Francisco, Detroit, Bangkok, Kathmandu, Budapest, or Nairobi. I've had the privilege of living on both sides of the education fence. I was a latecomer to OBA. I arrived in March 1984, just before Amy did, but I was a sophomore in high school. It was near the end of my sophomore year, and I had attended public schools up until that time. My family had just moved from Independence, Kansas, at the invitation of Jerry Jansen for my father, Roger Jansen, to work as sales manager for Jansen Olds. That's what brought us to Enid. My great-grandparents had lived in North Enid. They had 12 children. The youngest was my grandfather, Dan Jansen. I've discovered what this means for there to be 12 children, that I have about 1,000 second cousins in the Enid area, or that have lived here at one point. And it's been a joy, actually, as president of Tabor College, reconnecting and learning some of those relations and getting to know that extended family. My first year here at OBA, coming in 1984, it was the first year, it was just towards the end of the first year that OBA had moved from Mino to Enid, to the facility just next to us, and the building was brand new. There was no floor in the gym, and the kitchen wasn't ready, so everyone brought sack lunches every day. Of course, I'm biased, but I think we had a pretty special class. I had the privilege of graduating among 17 amazing friends. I see Kevin and Brenda Friesen are here. They were in my class. Others, Kim Gerbrandt, Deanna Luckenbill, Chris Atwood, Kelvin Schmidt, Stephanie Bowler, Becky Hayes, Crystal Lackey, among others. Our class gift was the engraving of Oklahoma Bible Academy on the stone out there on the building. It's fun to see that as I walked up today. I have so many great memories of my time and the people at OBA. Mr. Butler waxing eloquently in Bible class. Mr. Dallenberg directing the musical, choir, and band. Miss Gearing using her prep period to teach me pre-calc, so I was ready for Dr. Brenneman at Tabor College. That was a class of 1. An average of 10 is pretty good. It was just me in that class. Mr. Wiebe coaching soccer for the first time, I think, in his life. Mr. Lewis dealing with the chaos of the yearbook staff and helping me with my papers and speeches. One of my favorite memories, though, was convincing our science teacher, Mr. Fast, to take a field trip down to Houston to NASA's Johnson Space Center. I remember we removed all the seats from the back of the van and we piled in bean bags and sleeping bags, and we thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Probably wasn't very safe, but it was a blast. We had such a good time, and it was an impactful trip for me. I was also impacted in significant ways by people in this community, many of them associated with OBA. In particular, Joe and Arlene Fleming and their children were a great example. I worked with them at Baskin-Robbins and the Napa Parts Store. I learned so much from Joe and Arlene and their kids about running a small business and about being a Christian in business as I worked for them. After I graduated from OBA, I attended Tabor College for my undergraduate degree in math and computer science, and then I went to the University of Kansas to do my PhD in computer science. It was at Tabor that I built on the foundation established by my parents and churches and at OBA. But I had to make my faith my own. At 18, going off to college, being independent for the first time, you make a lot of big decisions. I had to work out my salvation, decide if I would really get up and go to church on a Sunday without mom and dad taking me. I had to figure out God's calling on my life and my vocation, and who would I seek out in friends and as a spouse. After my education, I worked in the software industry, and I taught both at Christian colleges and public universities. For 15 years, just before coming to Tabor, I was a professor at Cal Poly, as was mentioned, in San Luis Obispo. And I led the software engineering program there, and I did research, and I helped students start companies through the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. In that context, I saw how dark the world can be in public education. I saw faculty pointing students intentionally away from Jesus. Every year I met students who would say something like, "Yeah, I went to youth group in high school, but when I got to college, my sociology, religion, English, whatever, fill in the blank, professor convinced me that religion is just for weak-minded people. It broke my heart to see that. And yet it was a delight on the other end when a student would come up to me and say, I don't get it. You seem like a pretty smart guy, and you are a Christian. You love the Lord. Can you explain that to me? It was an opportunity. I accepted the job at Cal Poly because I genuinely felt a calling to be a missionary at the public university, to be a tent maker, a light in a dark place. Like so many other OBA students, I was sent out to make disciples. Each of us has a unique path, and mine happened to involve becoming a university professor, a researcher, an entrepreneur, and now a president. I had the great privilege of helping hundreds of students get jobs in software companies like Google and Apple and Microsoft and Facebook or Meta and many other smaller companies. One of my favorite things to do was helping them start companies. In 2009, 2010, I taught what we thought was the first Android course in the world. And out of that class, we had 6 startups. And one of them went on to be acquired by Google the very next year for a reported $10 million. Well, you can imagine what happened. I had 1,000 students at my door saying, can you do that for me? No. Now, ironically, I remember when my senior year here at OBA, when personal computers came to high school, and there was a big deal. They installed in a classroom the first personal computers. But because I was a latecomer to OBA, I hadn't taken typing as a freshman like everybody else, and so I took typing on those typewriters. It was interesting, you made that connection. And I learned to type while all the rest of my classmates were learning to use computers, and I thought that was pretty cool. Of course, I'm the one then that went on to become the computer scientist. God used my interest in computing to put me in places where I could share the good news of Jesus. I felt called to be a missionary to the software industry and public education, and others are called to their field, their location, whatever that may be. I want to be careful in all this to not promote an us versus them mentality. I don't want to be talking about Christian versus public schools. Like myself, I think there are some great Christian people doing effective ministry in public schools. Karen and I were very involved in ministries like Asian American Christian Fellowship. Not because we're so Asian, but we're American and we're Christians, and they accepted us. And Chinese Christian Fellowship, and the Navigators and crew, and we saw fruit in these ministries. And there were students at Cal Poly who sought a Christian group, and they were able to find Christians there. But rather, after 15 years in the public university, God turned our hearts back to Christian education. As I mentioned, I have a dream of a day when our Christian schools are so high quality and well funded that everyone, whether they are Christ followers yet or not, wants to attend. They're drawn to it. They're just compelled to come to the Christian schools. I have a bold, maybe audacious vision of a day when Christian schools are so amazing that society completely rethinks our model of public education. I dream of a day when taxpayer money is used to fund Christian schools because society recognizes their value. We see movement on this in Arizona, if you've been watching the news there. They've got a voucher system, and it's being challenged. Now, I'm not on a mission to change the entire educational system. My vision isn't quite that big for myself, but I do feel called to do my best, to do my all, to make Tabor College the best Christian college it can possibly be. And I know I'm not alone. I've got a great team at Tabor, and you have a great team at OBA who desires to do the same thing here. I've come to believe that Christian education is one of the best investments that one can make. The return on investment is amazing. There are some great ministries out there, fantastic ministries out there, that many of them have one-time, short-term impact on young people, and they're good. But with Christian education, we have this multiple-year opportunity to pour into a young person's life. We have enough time to walk with students as their minds and lives are transformed by Christ, changing and forming neural pathways in our brains. It takes time. Establishing one's character takes time. And Christian education is where we have that time. At Tabor, we have a great new online Masters of Education program in neuroscience and trauma that's related to this. It's a program that first studies how the brain works and how it can be impacted by trauma especially, but then how it can be transformed over time. The entire program is based on Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. At Tabor, we see God transforming lives every semester, as I'm sure you do here at OBA. At the beginning of this semester, we had a guest speaker in our academic convo. His name is Noe Garcia. He's a pastor of North Phoenix Baptist Church, a big church, a Southern Baptist church, I think, if I remember right. And his wife is a Tabor alum. Noe came and he shared his testimony that day. It was real, it was compelling, it was powerful. And at the end, he gave an invitation, a Southern Baptist-style invitation. And we saw 40 Tabor students come forward and make a commitment to Christ that day. You might wonder right away, how is it there were 40 non-Christian students at a Christian college to come forward in that way? Well, Tabor is what I call a critical mass Christian college. All of our faculty and staff and coaches and directors are Christians. We work very hard to make sure that everyone we hire has an authentic relationship with Jesus Christ, that they know the Bible and they are actively involved in a local church. However, we don't have that same requirement for our students. The majority of our students do come to Tabor because they want to go to a Christian college. They want to grow in their faith, attend chapel and Bible classes, but a minority of our students do come to Tabor for other reasons. They know it as a Christian school, but that might not be why they chose it. Even after just 1 year as president now at Tabor, I can tell you so many stories of students whose lives have been transformed by Christ. And I'm sure that if you talk to Mr. Wilkin and the faculty here, you'll hear those stories here as well. We have one student I'll tell you about. He's a sophomore this year. He attended an excellent Christian high school in California. His parents and grandparents are strong Christian people, all of them Tabor grads, by the way. But like so many students, when he arrived at college, he had some big decisions to make. Who am I going to be? Was he going to make his faith his own? What was his purpose in life? What was his calling? And he struggled for a little while with those decisions, and maybe even strayed a little bit, wondering, what do I believe, and who is it that I want to be? However, because he was at a Christian college, he was surrounded by Christian students and faculty and coaches and staff. And for him, in particular, our campus pastor poured into him as he made his faith his own, and now this young man is on fire for Jesus. He has the biggest smile on his face every day, and he's sharing Christ and leading Bible studies, and he has determined his path for certain now. We have lots of other stories, and sometimes the stories are messy. It's not always neat and clean, and it's not always perfect, the path that students take. It takes some students 4 years of college to choose to follow Jesus with their whole heart, and for some it even comes later. But I am so excited about what is happening at Tabor these days. Not only do we have a great campus, and especially a spiritual climate this year, but we are seeing great successes in the classroom, in the arts, and athletics. We see students getting great internships, jobs, and acceptance to graduate school and medical school, and going out into the world, taking the gospel with them. If I can wrap up and leave you with one thought, it would be worth it. Christian education is worth the effort. It's worth the investment. It is one of the best ways to be obedient to Jesus' call to make disciples and further Christ's kingdom. It's been a privilege for me to be here with you tonight. It's a privilege to be partners in ministry. I encourage you to keep up the good kingdom-building work that you're doing here. Come and visit us at Tabor, and I look forward to returning often now that I'm back in the neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, the results are in. Hallie Caldwell and Kyle Lilly have been elected to the board, and Marlon Esau will fill the alumni role.
couple of things as we wrap up. Andy Shuey, where is Andy? I saw him earlier. Where is he? Stand up right there. Everybody take a look. Gentleman in blue shirt. Wonderful, wonderful. On your table, there are a couple of things that I want you to take home with you. Okay, so first off, and most importantly, the monthly prayer guide, where you can put this with you. God is the one who changes hearts. We present, we share, we are loving them into loving Christ, but ultimately that is a work of the Holy Spirit. And so that prayer from you is really, really important, that you can add that. Second off, at the tables, there is a card of our partnership with the MB Foundation, all kinds of different gifts to OBA that benefit us long-term, short-term, can be facilitated through the Mennonite Brethren Foundation. And Andy Shuey is here, and he is ready to schedule an appointment with you. So he brought his book, and so he's ready to get an appointment with you to figure out what are the different ways that works best for you to invest in OBA and what God is doing here. And then again, the Opportunity Scholarship Fund, that's such a great opportunity in the state of Oklahoma for people to send their money for kids to come to OBA instead of whatever they do with it down in Oklahoma City, and where we can use that. So some opportunities for you to continue to see the mission and to see the kingdom work, as David reminded us of OBA. Join me in prayer as we close tonight. Father, thank you for the opportunity to hear about what you are doing and appreciating in this season of Thanksgiving. God, what you have done here, the commitment of your people to see this educational institution continue to make a difference from one generation to the next. Father, for the people that you have brought to work the harvest field of OBA in Northwest Oklahoma, thank you. And God, thank you for the generosity of the investors that have given so that students, investing in the hearts and minds of students, would be transformed for your glory and for your honor. God, you are good, and because of your faithfulness, we look excitedly to the future. In Jesus' name, amen. That concludes our gathering tonight. So feel free to continue to enjoy your OBA community. I will leave the lights on for several more minutes for you